Hello. My name is Barb Kavocovitch. You can just remember Barb, that's enough. And here we are in session 2. So I am, again, going to congratulate you on being here for week 2. And if this is your first time to be here, I'm even more appreciative of your bravery. So we're going to be talking about how do I survive my pain. First of all, I want you to remember that you're not alone. Your pain matters here. Everything is normal, but not everything is helpful. Last week we learned from Aaron, you remember Aaron, how to find words for your loss instead of, through verbal processing, instead of the overwhelming, overreaching loss, take it down to small bites. And that's what we're going to talk about a little bit tonight. And she encouraged it either in writing, in verbally, or in writing. And we encourage you to try these tools because they're helpful things in your grief. Bear with me as I learn how to do all these little clicky things that I'm supposed to know. By the way, my husband is back there helping me in a clicker guy. I do. One of the other things we learned about was moving forward. You have a choice between post-traumatic stress disorder or post-traumatic stress growth. And here we are on that crazy map, that messy map, on week 2. So how do I survive my pain? So here we go. Grief is love's receipt. It's a souvenir. It shows us that it's our proof that we were once loved. Grief is the receipt we can wave in the air and say to the world, look, what love was once mine, I love well, and here's the proof that I paid the price. So this group, this amazing group, these are the people I love most. This was a cruise that our family went on in 2019, just before COVID hit. It's my husband and I, our 4 surviving children, their spouses, and a whole bunch of our grandkids. It was an amazing time. I'm also going to show you the additions since then. My one granddaughter got married, so we've added another to our family. That's Kyle, the groom, and that sweet baby is the newest grandchild. We have 15 grandchild. And on that cruise, there were 23 of us. It was quite amazing. But not pictured are the receipts of love I have earned over time. I, like some of you, have lost a baby, a pregnancy, a receipt. A marriage of 18 years while I was pregnant with our 4th child ended in divorce, another receipt. And I, like many of you, have lost significant friends and family. My sister Lynn died in a tragic accident at her home in 1996. And that was where I first came to grief support here at Willow. My leader then was a woman named Bonnie. And though I thought each table was grouped in like losses, spouse loss, sibling loss, child loss, Bonnie had not lost a sister like I had, but a daughter to suicide. So if you would remember that fact, please. My mom and dad died within 8 weeks of each other in 2004. And this is my beautiful, vivacious, funny, super smart daughter, Lori Bonsamino. I want to remind you that you don't have to edit your grief here. So if I get weepy, I know it's okay. If you choose to get weepy at any part, that's totally cool, and be comfortable in your grief. So here's Lori. So she was the one missing from that magical family photo, that cruise photo. Lori died by suicide 2 months after this picture was taken. She was just 3 months shy of her turning 21 years old. We had made so many plans for her 21st birthday. It was going to be fun. She died on March 2nd of 2005, and this was a Wednesday, just today is a Wednesday. I received a call from my stepdaughter, Kristen, who was taking classes at Harper College with Lori. Kristen told me as I was walking out of New Community that night that Lori had not shown up for class at Harper, and it was a test night. And this was so unlike Lori because she loved school. She loved all aspects of it. So we started making calls, and we soon found out that no one had seen her since she had stopped in at her Starbucks, where she and her fiance both worked. There were baristas there. Eventually we went to the police because this was not like her. Lori was missing for several days. Our house was constantly filled with people bringing food and ideas, setting up a website. I was praying, waiting for news. There were searches, flyers, massive searches, and the police questioned us and many others who knew Lori several times. Nobody was thinking it was suicide, but perhaps an abduction or an accident. And it turned out that this was not the case at all. Her Jeep was found at the Chicago police pound with her suicide note left on the front seat. Her belongings had been discovered by a woman walking along the Lake Michigan walking path near Adelaide Planetarium. Now, this was March, and I am so thankful for that woman because we would not have had any idea where Lori even was. Once we knew that it was suicide, I remember that old receipt that I had collected when Connie was my table leader. She was somebody I could go to right now who could tell me about some of the things I was going to be heading through and if I was going to survive this. So Bonnie and I reconnected. It was wonderful, and so was Rebuild. So, will I survive? I'm sure that's a question that a lot of you have. Let me see if I get this right. Will I survive? And here I'm going to point out, you've got a worksheet in front of you, and there's little blanks there. So this is where you get to fill those spots in. I know it seems like I should have already known this, but I'm just going to remind you of that. So, will I survive? So the question is, but will I survive this? Especially in the early days. Even more specific might be a desire for the pain to stop. The longing, the questions, the feeling of floating through the day instead of being fully present. This is super normal, of course. The good news is that after some times go by, you'll start to ask questions. Will I thrive? What do I do to make this pain turn into something other than just pain? Slide 8 should be this one. Here we go. What I've experienced in church, and I know not all of you are church people, but here's what I've experienced, is that there's a tendency to bury or numb the pain, often focusing on happy verses in the Bible. Like this one. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. Maybe you're like me, and I used to think that if I was good, my life would be easy if I followed Jesus. He'd make sure I had a pain-free, comfortable life. Verses like this one in John 10:10 seem to support this theory. And I often heard sermons like this along these lines. God wants you to be happy and prosperous. But the same author, John, also says, in this world you will have trouble. And I used to read it like this. In this world, other people will have trouble. But with Lori's death, I was forced to look at my Bible differently. I had to consider that an abundant life for me included the parts of life that were troublesome, loathsome, hateful, hurtful. That pain and being uncomfortable are normal and unavoidable, but can coexist with the reality of living a full life. It might even be considered a receipt for having a full, abundant life. So on your handout, you'll see a small gray box on page 14, I believe. Just check to make sure. By Dan Allender. Yeah, it's down on the bottom. And he says, in the fallen world, and by the way, Dan Allender is the president of the Seattle School of Psychology and Theology. And as it turned out, my stepdaughter Kristen and my son-in-law Sean went there and both got their degrees after Lori's death, and they are both counselors now. So that's pretty amazing all by itself. Dan Allender says, in the fallen world, the abundant life was never meant to be pain-free. I've come to know that God can take what the enemy means for evil, and God can take that and transform it into a promised, abundant, full life. James, another disciple, he calls our pain a trial that tests and produces perseverance. He says perseverance actually matures us and leads us to a place where we can rely so deeply on God for fulfillment that we end up not lacking for anything. It's not that pain is good. It's that God can take the normal, unavoidable reality of pain and it can turn into peace and joy again. And we can thrive again. And here's the verse. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything. So when I look over my life, the seasons I've experienced, hardship, pain, loss, those are the times I really have grown the most. Every time we encounter pain, we have a choice. And really, it's a series of little micro-choices over time that result in either staying stuck or growing and thriving. And for me, this was really encouraging because it meant that I had more control than I actually realized. I can choose my response. I can choose what my pain turns into. So, will I survive? Pain is a primary pathway for thriving. Pain presents an opportunity. Pain presents a choice. You can either choose loss plus nothing or loss plus growth. Take a minute to reflect on what kind of growth you hope to experience. Loss and nothing or loss and growth. Make that choice. So what do you want your pain to turn into? Oopsie. Stick with me. Don't go away. What do you want to be? Self-reflection. On the bottom of page 13 are some possible choices for you, or you can list your own. So we're going to take about 60 seconds or so. There'll be a little bit of music, and you can choose to write down. I would like you to write down some of the things that you would like your pain to turn into. In order for our pain to turn into something, we must face our feelings of loss head on. We need to think of our emotions. We like to think that our emotions work much like a soundboard, where with different levers we can push down, push up those feelings like sorrow or anger or guilt or confusion. The truth is, we have to feel the hard feelings if we're ever going to feel the hopeful, positive ones again. Our emotions are actually more like this, a volume knob. And if you turn them up, all your emotions will be turned up. If you turn them down and mute them, all your emotions, the good, the happy, the terrible, the depressing, are all going to be muted. So you can't turn that volume down. As you have to go through. And there are 3 tips I'm going to give you as you go through your early grief. And I want to remind you that early doesn't necessarily mean recent grief. It simply means early in the process of working through your grief. Early looks different for everyone. So, tip 1. Do helpful things. The only way out of pain is to go through it. So the first idea, the helpful tip here, is be kind to yourself. Sometimes you just need a break from the pain. This is normal. You have to come up for air and take it in manageable, small bites. Be curious. Be curious about what keeps you from helpful grieving. Do you see a pattern? And be courageous. I already mentioned that you're courageous just for being here. Be courageous about taking the next step through. Take a break when you need to, but do helpful things to keep moving through your pain whenever possible. So, tip 2, own your journey. I want you to imagine that someone steals your wallet and in the process roughs you up and breaks your arm. Is it your fault that your arm got broken? No. Is the robber going to take you to the doctor, pay the bills, help you care for yourself while you're in a cast? Go through physical therapy for you? No, of course not. In the same way, your grief is not your fault, and healing is your responsibility. What happened is not your fault, and yet healing is your responsibility. Release yourself from any, it says fault, but also guilt. It's important to release yourself from guilt for anything you may have done or not done. Give yourself grace. So if you've gone, some things have gone on already that have bothered you, give yourself some grace and carry on. So the last, get outside guidance. That was the last one. And on your tables are the little cards that have pastors on call here at Willow. If you are looking for a counselor, they can guide you to counselors who are skilled in being grief counselors. You might take suggestions from maybe somebody else at your table who's already been going to counseling. So here we go to tip 3, avoid getting stuck. And we're going to be spending a little more time here because this is probably one of the more common things. What is normal in early grief can be stuck in later grief. So remaining stuck requires a choice. Avoid getting, do I have this right? Avoid getting stuck. While it is normal to be in early grief, being stuck in later grief, remaining stuck requires a choice. Just a show of hands, does anybody feel like they're stuck in grief right now? Appreciate that. So we're going to talk about some of the ways to avoid getting stuck. And then if you look on your handout, this should be a column on page 15. And these are the patterns, and we're going to just touch base on these. So in the handout, you'll see on the left is a category of stuck, its symptoms, and a prescription to get unstuck. The first one, and this is a hard one, giving up. Thoughts of self-harm or suicide, debilitating depression, detachment from things and people that were once important to you, resigning that life will never again be beautiful or good. The next is fixating, steering every conversation toward your loss. I did that a lot. Preoccupation with memories, shrining, that's obsessing about your loved one's things or belongings or habits. Made shrines in several rooms. I did that a bit, and I'm guessing I see a head nod that you might have as well. So an example of fixating is one of the central characters in Charles Dickens's classic novel, Great Expectations, is Miss Havisham, who decades ago, long ago, as a young bride-to-be, was left deserted by her fiancé at the altar. Rather than choosing to grieve her heartbreaking loss, she fixated on it. It became her new identity. She never took off her wedding dress. 30 years later, the untouched wedding cake still sat moldering on her dining room table. Rather than choosing to grieve her loss, she chose to be held captive by it. She let loss win. She sacrificed any hope of a better life, PTSG, post-traumatic stress growth. She added to her loss by letting it consume her. So don't Habersham your loss. You guys can use that as your little code word at your table. Don't Habersham your loss. The next area you can get stuck is minimizing or denying. Saying things like, I'm fine, others have it worse, where you're unable to feel joy without guilt. Or over-spiritualizing, call it all joy, all things work together for good, but you're not really representing the pain that you're really feeling. You're glossing over it by saying, I'm fine. If you're not fine, it's okay to tell that. So these next ones, let's see what we have here. We have some nice leaves. Next thing is distraction. And right now we're going to talk about good things, necessary things. You can get distracted by helping others with their grief, like your child or siblings or your parents. You could spend time doing homework or paying bills or distracting ourselves at work. All these things are good things, but don't let them become your crutch, and don't let them keep you from doing the grieving that you really need to do. So this one, anesthetizing. That's another area of getting stuck. When we're hurting, we're tempted to numb our pain. Might be online shopping, Amazon Prime. Could be alcohol. Could be Netflix, binge watching. Exercise, that has never ever been my anesthetizing thing. Back to this. Anesthetizing yourself with food or Facebook, social media. These are not helpful things. Instead, find helpful things to substitute as you want to try to go through your grief. And last week, we learned 3 activities. Purposeful conversation was one. Expressive writing. And you'll learn many more tools in the weeks to come. And just so you know, on your handouts, there's often a little icon that shows a tool. I should see it right here, but if one of the leaders can point out one to me, that would be great. All right, never mind. But we will be talking about these tools as we go through. So each of the patterns we just talked about, those are all areas that might keep you stuck. So what I'd like you to do is check all that apply to you and write down any ideas that you might have so you can go through this. And I think this time we will have a little bit of music to go along with this 1 or 2 minutes. Okay? Is that clear? This is self-reflection too. So, before I end, I want to show you 2 things. Months after Lori's death, I needed to get a gift, and so I went to Bed Bath & Beyond. Once inside, it occurred to me that the last time I was there was with Lori, getting things for her now more adult bedroom. Oh, how we laughed. What a good time we had. But then it hit me in that store, the ambush of emotions. I struggled with tears and I ducked into a side aisle, asking God for a sign that I will survive this pain, I will survive her loss. As I was dabbing in my eyes, I spied a gold Christmas stocking holder with the word joy on it. One of Lori's favorite sayings was, "Don't let anyone steal your joy." So I bought that, and as you can see, her stocking hangs in the middle. And each year we set out paper and a pen, and if you want to write a little something to Lori or a prayer, we have encouraged family to do that through the years. So as I put that into my cart, on the next shelf down, I saw this most amazing thing, a lady's toolkit. And every tool, in this case, and the lid, and here, say Barb K on it. I'm Barb K. My name is on every single tool. So I had to thank God for so amazingly answering my prayer of distress, saying, I'm going to give you the tools to move forward through the grief of losing Lori. And I can't promise that every one of you is going to find a toolkit with your name on it. And I think God knew that I was a little bit of a slowie and I needed some really specific guidance, and I appreciate that so much. So it's time for group discussion, small group discussion. I just am going to remind you a little bit about the conversation guidelines. And those are leave time for everyone else to share. The leaders also know how to make sure everything goes, so especially at a bigger table, everybody gets a chance who wants to share. There's no pressure to share, but we want you to know not to go on so long. We lead into someone else's time. And you want to focus on your healing, but not fixing others. It's often common, I think especially with women, they want to fix everybody. So this is not the time for fixing anybody, but just you. So remember that. Don't interrupt, don't crosstalk, don't have little conversations off to the side. And most of all, don't tell others how they should be grieving. And stay on topic. It's easy to get off onto little, what do they call them, rabbit tracks, trails. So your leader will nudge you back on topic if that needs to happen. So I appreciate you guys sticking with me as I figure out how to do buttons and whatnot here. But I'm also sure that each of you will also be able to survive your loss.